than swift.
Well, hello and welcome. It's a new week here at the Cricket World Cup. A new episode of Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday, and a new guest that we welcome to our studio all the way from Auckland. We say a very warm hello to McClenaghan, who's joining us in the evening in New Zealand. Mitch, it's been a great start to the World Cup and an even better start for New Zealand. Have you enjoyed the tournament so far?
It's been great so far, it really has. And yeah, you're absolutely right. New Zealand, I think the performance of the tournament so far, knocking off the defending champions. So very happy in this camp, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's also been a good opportunity for us to watch all 10 teams in action at the tournament. So as we begin this new week, we start to get into what is effectively round 2 of the competition. Of course, everybody plays everybody at this 10-team World Cup, and it's a nice way of deciding who will qualify for the last 4. Wasim, Jaffer's in studio with me. Wasim, you've seen them all now and opening exchanges. What are your big takeaways?
Well, obviously, New Zealand, that first game was a great one for New Zealand, considering they were missing some key players, and then to put on a performance like that against defending champions, and then chasing down such a not so great total. I mean, still was a good total. They were, I thought, 50 runs short, but doing that so easy. Rachin Ravindra playing amazing knock, and then with all the guys coming in, they look a dangerous side. So them, and obviously the way India played yesterday, they look two probably standout teams. And then obviously South Africa.
I was going to call you up on that.
They put on a show. I mean, they are obviously my dark horse team again. But the way they played against Sri Lanka that day, you know, they look a very dangerous side as well.
Yeah, it was the highest total at a Cricket World Cup from South Africa. There's our points table. So early days yet, just a game each, and New Zealand well on top with a really good net run rate. Mitch, I just want to ask a little bit about how the World Cup is being received in New Zealand, given that it's also a Rugby World Cup, and of course both our countries, New Zealand and South Africa, they've made it to the quarterfinals of the rugby. Those are sports that we've had a lot of success in, our two nations, and of course the time zone, I suppose, is tricky. But how are people receiving it? Is there a lot of kind of vibe around New Zealand's performance?
Definitely a vibe after that magnificent performance first time round. It was absolutely sensational. And over the last couple of years, New Zealand cricket fans have really been getting behind the Black Caps, and understandably, they've just been supreme on and off the field in terms of the example they set for the community as well. So there's a good following, a good fan base. In terms of the Rugby World Cup, hey, we could be out after this week. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I mean, it's just the way it's worked, isn't it? We're playing France, our nemesis. So, look, fingers crossed we get past that. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of All Black fans jump on the bandwagon.
Mitch, you've spoken about people getting behind the Black Caps, and I remember from the 2015 World Cup, you know, there was that big campaign, the best days of our lives, as Brendan McCullum called them. Is it really that now cricket is taking a much bigger foothold in the country, and beating England must have told people that this is a big statement team and this team could go places? You know, they've reached 3 finals, but maybe they could win one this time.
Yeah, well, when you talk about Baz being the best time of his life, it's because he's played about 40 rounds of golf. So you've got to add that in there as well. But it was an incredible tournament, and the growth of cricket in New Zealand since that World Cup at home has been astronomical. It's been purely sensational. So, yep, it's grown since then, and what we've seen is the likes of Rachin Ravindra come through, who have just been purely dominant in how they've come into this international scene. So I think we're in a good position. I was a little bit concerned a couple of years ago on what the succession plan was, but the way these guys are adapting to international cricket now straight away has been nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about succession plan and consistency in performance. The one thing New Zealand have done so well is start big tournaments with victories. So it's their 3rd win in the opening match of a World Cup, and it's just getting out the blocks really quickly and decisively. Do you think that it takes something particularly special to put in a big performance first up?
I don't know if it takes something incredibly special. I just think it takes consistency of preparation and performance, and not putting the performance aspect of it at the forefront. Actually, just preparing as if it was a normal game. So you're not building the game up too much. And that's been a New Zealand way for a long period of time. It's not making the occasion bigger than it is and making it more than just a cricket game. And I think we see some teams get overexcited, over-enthused in those big situations. And New Zealand's just not that type of team anymore. It just takes everything in their stride.
You speak about the New Zealand way, and we're going to talk about styles of play a little bit later in the show. But Wasim, let's address the Dutch, and they put on a pretty good fight against Pakistan. We know they came through a grueling qualification process, first the World Cup Super League, then the tournament in Zimbabwe. How do you think they're looking in this competition amongst the big dogs?
I think they did all right. You expect the associate teams to struggle a little bit against the top teams because they don't get the same kind of facilities and all the luxuries that the top teams have. They don't play the same kind of level of cricket against the teams. But I think they did well to first of all restrict them to Pakistan to 280 odd, and they did bat it okay. They could have done better, but I think the attitude and the atmosphere in that team makes me feel that this team will improve over a period of time. If they keep playing against this kind of opposition, if this kind of tournaments, they've got the players who will turn up and put on a show. And in this tournament as well, I feel going forward, you might see them upset few teams.
It's been a pretty rough start for them. I mean, they start with Pakistan, they move on to New Zealand, and next they've got South Africa, I think. So it's big teams that they're playing against. I mean, there is no other way, is there? They have to go and play these guys.
Yeah, it won't be easy. I mean, it's a World Cup, obviously. But they've got the right attitude. I mean, we've heard them, they don't want to talk about associate thing in their camp. So the mentality is right. And they've got some decent players, who play in county cricket. So they are used to playing against top names. And that's a good thing. I mean, they'll get a lot out of this tournament as they play these 8 or 9 games. I'm sure they'll get better.
Yeah, they certainly do have some big name players, and we're going to look at some of those names, but just an update from the toss is that the Dutch will be fielding first, so New Zealand will be the ones setting them a target. Some of those big name players, Wasim, we've spoken about ones who've made their names in county cricket, like a Bastilleader, for example, and then there are a couple who have a special relationship with New Zealand, Max O'Dowd, the opening batter, as well as Logan van Beek, who has this mixed heritage, a little bit West Indies, a little bit New Zealand. We've had some of our reporters on the ground have a look at the special relationship between the Dutch cricketers and their New Zealand roots. And so we're going to be taking a look at that relationship in a moment.
When New Zealand and Netherlands take the field in Hyderabad on Monday, there's going to be a lot of banter that will be flying around, a lot of familiarity between both sides, and that's because there are a lot of players who live in New Zealand that are playing for the Netherlands. Logan van Beek, for example, plays his domestic cricket with the Wellington Firebirds. He's teammates with Devin Conway and Rachin Ravindra, and he knows a lot of New Zealand players in the current setup as well. He was once housemates with Tom Latham and Matt Henry, and growing up through the age group system, the three lived together, trained together, played together until they went their separate ways. Logan van Beek is still available for selection for New Zealand, but unfortunately, because that couldn't happen and the Netherlands opportunity opened up, here he is now playing against his mates in a World Cup game. Then of course there's Teja Nidamanuru. What an interesting journey that is. He plays a lot of cricket in New Zealand. He holds a New Zealand passport, lived in Auckland all his growing up years, and then moved to Netherlands 4 years ago. Then there's Max O'Dowd, again born, brought up in Auckland, played all his early cricket in Auckland. Again lives most of the year in New Zealand, playing for the Netherlands because his mum holds a Dutch passport and has Dutch heritage. So this is the connection that the New Zealand-Netherlands team have between themselves. There's a lot to look forward to in terms of the cricket, but there's also a lot of fun and games, banter, and some friendly rivalry on the sidelines that makes this game a very, very interesting game to look out for.
Thanks to Shashank for that really interesting report, and some big smiles there from Logan van Beek, and that was after he helped the Dutch to get closer to qualification when they beat West Indies, unfortunately out of this game with a hamstring injury. And Mitch, how he would have loved to play against New Zealand. He spoke about dreaming of playing for them and having his little checkbook and wanting to play a World Cup. What a bummer.
Yeah, it is such a shame, and it's a massive blow for the Netherlands. He's so explosive at the top with the new ball. He swings the ball prodigiously, and actually has actually got Will Young out in the previous series that was in New Zealand. So, that's going to be a blow to them. The other guys, look, Tasia played at Auckland. He was an off spinner. He wasn't even a fixture with the bat. So where he's come from when he was playing domestic cricket in New Zealand to where he is now is truly miraculous. Geez, that's not even the word, is it?
Miraculous and remarkable, a new word.
Miraculous and remarkable all in one. There we go. And look, I tell you what, when it comes to what Logan done and even Max O'Dowd at the top, that partnership with Singh at the top, that's the key to the Netherlands side. They really need a good start if they're going to compete with New Zealand.
Mitch, can we just talk a little bit more about that special relationship of New Zealand and Dutch players? But it's not just that. I mean, there's a bigger theme around this World Cup. I think somebody said 23 South Africans scattered around the place, including the Dutch coach, Ryan Cook. So there's a little bit of intercontinental relationship building, I suppose we can call it. And how does that stack up in terms of rivalry, or is it just nice to see the game growing?
I think it's great to see the game growing. I think the positive thing for New Zealand is that they've got the best South Africans who've come to New Zealand, right?
True.
Just look at the track record in World Cups. I mean, we've had Grant Elliott. Now you've got Devon Conway dominating. It's such a positive for New Zealand that these guys want to relocate their families and start a life in New Zealand. And it's happening with a lot of other countries. You've seen it in the past with England, with Kevin Peterson, Jonathan Trott and the likes. And it's just the nature of the global game and the opportunities that you get in different parts of the world. And I think it's only a good thing for cricket.
Wasim, we see it a lot with Indian players who have either moved for other reasons, for jobs, and then they find themselves playing cricket in another country or relocating for cricketing reasons. What do you think of the growth of players from the subcontinent in other parts of the world?
I think it's a good thing. We've seen a lot of Asians, Indians and Pakistani and the other players moving on to the associate nations. We've seen in the American side, USA side, a lot of Indians playing there. And as they play in those tournaments, the competition gets better. Obviously, those are the first-class players. Probably because of the competition is so high here, they don't get the opportunity. They move on to those places, and it just makes those teams a lot more stronger. So, it's a good thing.
Yeah, the import and export of cricket we're bringing to you here on Matchday. But we're now ready to take a look at the teams for today. So New Zealand have named their 11 and there's no Tim Southee in it. He's still recovering from that fractured thumb. Mitch, your immediate reaction to Lockie Ferguson's inclusion and the makeup of that attack?
That's the best side New Zealand can put on the park at the moment. I think Matt Henry is ahead of Tim Southee at the moment, even if he is fully fit. I think that he'll start ahead of them, and Trent Bolt's going to pair him at the top with being that left arm swing option. And Lockie Ferguson's one of those guys who's just got to express pace and can break partnerships up in the middle. Just something that he can just do that a little bit better than Tim Southee at the moment. But that's not to say Tim Southee's not a quality player. It's just look at the form of Matt Henry. He's been incredible of late through the blast for the last couple of years with New Zealand. We saw in the first game, he was so accurate and just threatening all the time. David Milan couldn't even get him off the square. So he's going to be a hard man for Southee to get past. But I like that lineup. Obviously missing Kane Williamson. What I do like is that Will Young's going to get another opportunity. The series in New Zealand against the Netherlands, he scored 224 runs, and that was with 200s in that series. So don't count him out. I know he missed out first ball against England, but he's got a good track history against the Netherlands.
Yeah, and those kind of things happen. I mean, a first baller can happen to anyone. But Mitch, I'm interested in that point you brought up about the choice between the pace bowlers and Matt Henry maybe being slightly ahead of Tim Southee. So Matt Henry's been in great form over the last 2 years, 35 wickets at an average under 30. And it's interesting that you say he's just edging ahead. Can you talk to us a little bit more about why that is and what will Southee have to do besides get fit to get into the 11?
Look, I think that Tim Southee and Matt Henry are both new ball bowlers, and then Bolt's in a league of his own, right? He's there as a left arm swing option, and he's going to open the bowling at the other end. And then it comes down to whether Tim Southee can do a better job at first change than Lockie Ferguson. Look, Lockie Ferguson's numbers haven't been good over the last while. I mean, he's really struggled to make an impact with the ball. He's been a little bit unlucky. So I'm hoping that this is the World Cup where he can actually break open the middle of the innings for the Black Caps. But when it comes to Matt Henry, I think it's just that the fact that he's just been so accurate and the skills that he struggled with in the past, which was coming back in the middle and taking wickets and then bowling death. We saw in the Blast this year, he was sensational at being able to finish off a game for Somerset and bowled really nice Yorkers and really good change-ups. And that's what the New Zealand coaching staff have been asking for him for 3-4 years now, and he started to produce the goods at the back end.
So New Zealand going with possibly their strongest pace pack, Wasim, according to Mitch there. And we spoke ahead of the Netherlands' first game against Pakistan that express pace and possibly that left arm angle would be the two things that they would struggle to face. And I guess to an extent that was true. Will this now be an even bigger test for them than the Pakistan attack?
Something similar. I mean, Pakistan pace attack, we know, even though they're missing Naseem Shah, you still got Shaheen Shah Afridi and Haris Rauf. They won't have faced the same kind of bowlers in the associate games or wherever. Similarly, Trent Bolt, Matt Henry and Lockie Ferguson will pose the same challenges. I mean, they were so disciplined against England in the first game. They didn't allow the batters and the lines they bowled closer to the stump. You expect the same. They do the basics so well. So similar, I would say. If not better, probably similar.
Wasim, just in terms of yourself being a batting coach, and of course the World Cup is a condensed 6-week event, you probably can't do too much to improve in terms of technical skills. But if you're the Dutch and you know you're going to face attacks like New Zealand's, they've already faced Australia in a warm-up, South Africa, England, etc. What can the batters do to just prepare themselves for this challenge? Because I guess it's a little bit scary in a way. Here's like 150k thunderbolts coming at you.
I mean, they themselves have, I mean, we spoke about Logan Van Beek, and then nowadays you get so many sidearmers throwing at them at same speed. So the batters do get used to that. But again, facing them in the game is a different scenario. It's all about, spending a little bit more time at the crease. When you face it at the first time, in those high pressure games with the crowd, they won't have played in such crowds in the associate game. So just getting used to it, spending a bit more time, and giving themselves a little bit more time, and then things get easier. With Kookaburra ball, with 5 and 6 overs either end, it doesn't do much after that. So things get easier as long as they spend that much time in the middle and keep wickets in hands. They've got quality. It's just important for them to believe in themselves that they belong at this level.
Yeah, and they've already expressed to us that they definitely want to be at this level. Let's have a look now at how the Dutch team are stacking up for today's contest. We know that we saw Arilla van der Merwe actually at the beginning, and it looked like he was congratulating Sybrand Engelbrecht, who is in fact in the 11 and making his debut today. So Sybrand Engelbrecht, a South African known for his gun fielding at the 2008 Under-19 World Cup, quite a long time ago. Mitch or Wasim, I don't know which of you guys have maybe seen more of him or know a little bit about him. Mitch, anything your side? You're nodding there.
No, look, I just think from the Netherlands side from the first game is that they were just a little bit light on batting. They had Zulfikar at 7, and obviously Engelbrecht has come in and he's going to battle in that position. So again, he's a little bit stronger with the bat than Zulfikar is, which is going to be an addition to the side. But obviously, you lose the impact of Logan Van Beek at the back end. And for the Dutch, I think the 280 that they kept Pakistan to the other night, I think that's going to be close to as good as they're going to do in terms of restricting a side to a score throughout this tournament. So I'd be inclined, with the amount of bowling options that they've got, to actually play one more batter. They've got 7-8 bowling options that we saw throughout the qualifiers, that almost everyone in that side can do something with the ball. And they've got to take a risk if they really want to compete at this World Cup. And I think it's going to be playing an extra batter to give themselves the opportunity of being able to chase down the runs.
Yeah, we saw Ryan Klein at the World Cup qualifiers, and as you mentioned, he's definitely got something, a lot of variation, but there were times when he was pretty inconsistent as well, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And then, Rich, just to take that point forward, it seems like where the Dutch have struggled is maybe with containing in the middle overs and a little bit of death bowling. What would you say needs to change there? What can they do today? Because New Zealand have got some big hitters at the end of their innings.
Yeah, they do. Look, when you're playing against a side like New Zealand or any of these big sides throughout this tournament, you've really got to try and maximise taking wickets up top, and you've got to try and get a team 6-7 down by the 40th over and use up all your artillery early, because at the back end, if if New Zealand's only 4 down, they're going to absolutely annihilate you with the power that they have in their side. They're playing Chapman today as well. He was awesome in the warm-up games, along with Jimmy Neesham. They've got guys who can dominate that end phase. So all-out attack. And if you don't get them 5 down or 6, 7 down by their 40th over, you know, sometimes you get lucky at the death. So I'd use your main resources leading up to the 40th over. Hope you get them 6, 7 down, and that's going to be the easiest way to make that death phase easier for your bowlers.
Yeah, we saw the Dutch bowlers conceding at around 8 runs and over in the last 10 overs. So they'll have a job to do in that department. Before we get to a few more specifics of the game, Mitch, I'd like to address with you what's come up as quite an interesting question around Kane Williamson. Of course, not back yet, and we know that he's preparing to play in their 3rd match. But for now, it's Tom Latham leading the side, as he's done for most of this year. I wonder, is this New Zealand side Tom Latham's New Zealand? Is it still Kane Williamson's New Zealand? Or doesn't New Zealand cricket work like that? Do they not have an ownership structure to the way that they play?
Well, good question. Very good question. I don't think there's an ownership structure to how they play the game, but in terms of all the preparation, Kane Williamson's at the forefront with Gary Stead. If you were going to say there's one person's team, then you would have to say it's Kane Williamson's team still. And I'd imagine when he comes back into the fold that he's going to go straight into being captain again. It's something he does very well. Tom Latham, don't take anything away from how he skipped the side recently. He's been phenomenal. What we saw against the English, he just kept on making the right decisions at the right time. Every time New Zealand took a wicket, he brought back a strike bowler to try and go 1-2, and that's what it's all about, just good game awareness. His run scoring ability has dropped, and that's been one of the strengths of the New Zealand cricket side in years gone by, is how good Tom Latham's been in that middle phase. So maybe if Kane Williamson gets that captaincy back, we'll see a little bit of pressure come off Tom Latham and he'll back to his run scoring best.
Yeah, Wasim, it is sometimes something that happens to captains when they take on the leadership. It can affect individual performance. Do you think that's what's happened with Latham, or is it just a regular dip in form?
I think it's just a regular thing. He'll probably come good. He's somebody who plays spin really well, and he used to that middle order position. In Test cricket, we know he bats top of the order, but in the Indian conditions, he's done so well before. So if he comes good, that's going to be added bonus into that strong batting lineup of New Zealand. He's a quality player. You know, sometimes that happens. You know, with the added pressure, he's wicket keeping, he's captain. So, you know, it can happen to the best of the players, but he's a quality player, and I expect him to come good in this World Cup.
It's quite a drop in average there from 59.4 until 2022. That's from the 2019 World Cup onwards, and in a tough 2023 where he's had to lead New Zealand for most of their ODIs. Kane Williamson, of course, would have played in the IPL if he didn't get that ACL injury, and he's been out since then. It's been a miraculous recovery. We've seen so many in sport recently. Keshav Maharaj coming back from that Achilles injury, and Siya Kolisi, the South African Springbok rugby captain, who's also had an ACL, he's managed to come back too. I've got one more kind of tactical topic I'd like to discuss with the two of you, which is on the Netherlands as a team and on their team character. To my eye, they look very much like a team who's playing an almost New Zealand style of cricket from maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that they're building their basics really strong, running well between the wickets, turning ones into twos, fielding well. Wasim, are you getting that sense? And if they keep doing that, could they become as competitive as New Zealand, just resources aside, just in terms of style of play?
I think so. I think they're very athletic, they're very fit. And like I said, you know, most of the guys, they play county cricket, so they're used to some good cricket. And the more they play at this level, the kind of opposition, I'm sure they'll get better. They've got all the basics right. It's just about them, you know, playing good level of cricket time and again. And you can see the quality, you know, Bas de Lead and then Logan Van Beek and the batters. You can see the quality in there. It's just about, like I said, you know, believing in themselves that they belong. You know, like you said, New Zealand, even Sri Lanka for that matter, the early 90s, similar teams, but they kept getting better the more they played. I feel the same for this Dutch team as well.
Yeah, Mitch, do you see any similarities there and anything that they can then build on from this base?
Yeah, I think the coach you're talking about who came in and tried to change that for New Zealand was Steve Rickson. He came in and said, well, look, we might be not able to compete with the bat and the ball, but what we can do is be the best fielding side in the world. And there are shades of that in this Netherlands side in terms of trying to do the small things right. And they are a high-energy fielding side. They're all very athletic, as Wasim said. But the thing, they really try and point out the small details. The running of twos is one of the big things when they bat. Every time they go out and bat, as we saw in the World Cup qualifiers, they try and score more twos than the opposition. Will that be as impactful in India where the boundaries are a little bit smaller? They're still yet to be said, but they've got a game plan, and they know that they're not as good skill-wise as everyone else, so they have to do the small things well. So, look, I think if they continue doing that way, and also we've got to remember, this last cycle is the first cycle where the Netherlands have been playing top-tier nations. And yes, they didn't win many games, but you saw how much they'd improved when it came to the qualifiers. So I think if they get another set of exposure after this World Cup, and obviously during this World Cup, they could go anywhere.
Yeah, Mitch, that's an excellent point, because we know that the World Cup Super League is really what made the Netherlands able to compete so strongly in the qualifiers. That Super League is no longer, and let's just say the Netherlands didn't do very well in the Super League. They only won 3 out of their 24 matches, but it really benefits them from a skills perspective. I suppose it would be obvious to say, yes, we need the World Cup Super League to continue, but we know it's not going to. So how can these teams still get some top-level competitive cricket, or what can they do if you have an answer? I'm putting you on the spot a bit there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Look, I think there'll be a reassessment maybe halfway through or towards the end of the cycle and see what has happened. They've got a good measure of where the Netherlands have got to after being exposed to that Super League. Now there's going to be a period of time where it's not there, and I think it is something that's going to be sorely missed in world cricket. And look, I think in terms of the Netherlands going forward, I think they've probably done enough in this World Cup and in that Super League to warrant some bilateral series against some better nations. And then it's going to come down to their board, how well they can say to a New Zealand who's coming to tour the UK, hey, jump over the Netherlands, jump to Holland, and let's do your pre-tour stuff, couple of games against us as a warm-up. And they're going to have to be a bit crafty about how they tie England series or Ireland series into their benefit for nations that are going to be touring in the future.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. That Wasim, what's your take on that? I mean, you've also coached around a lot of the traps, and you would have seen a lot of these teams. How can they get more top-level cricket?
Yeah, I think I completely agree. The more they play, they get the opportunity to play against those nations, the more the bilaterals, I don't know if it's happening or not, 50 over, get their names out in the T20 leagues, sit across the great players and then learn from them. There are some quality players who are going to, they'll rub shoulders with and learn so much. You can see that quality, and if they keep playing those leagues, we've seen that in so many other nations. If you keep on playing those T20 leagues, franchise cricket, I'm sure they'll get better. And
no better stage really to put yourself in the spotlight for a T20 league place than here in India. Bastaleed is the one everyone's talking about. Is he someone you think maybe the IPL teams have got an eye on here?
Without a doubt. I mean, he can bowl, he can bat. He's a good fielder. That's what you want in any cricket, not just T20. And he's put on performances against best of the teams. I mean, the qualifiers, knock that he played, got wickets, got runs. He can hit big shots, and I'm sure after this World Cup comes to finish, and if he keeps on performing like that, there'll be few takers for him in the league.
Yeah, he's got 8 more opportunities for that. It's the Dutch's second game of this World Cup. So let's get now to the fun bit where you are going to give me your predictions, and then at halftime I'm going to see how right or wrong you were. What are we thinking is going to be a good score here, Wasim?
I'm expecting New Zealand to do well. So with their one bowler missing, Logan Van Beek, probably 330.
I'm not going for world records this time.
No, it's a big ground, and I'm expecting Netherlands to fight, with whatever resources they've got. So still 330, I think, on this ground is quite a big score.
Great. And Mitch, we saw quite a lot of runs scored in the warm-up games at this venue. Are you going a little higher, a little lower?
Yeah, there was 350 apiece, wasn't it, when New Zealand played Pakistan? So, look, hey, I'm going to be adventurous. I'm going to say 380.
Whoa, 380. Okay, nobody's touching 428 quite yet. But yeah, 380. We're going to hold you to those and see how you guys do when we come back. And if you had to pick a winner, or are we going too far ahead here?
I think if you score 380, you're probably going to win.
Yeah,
Good call, Mitch.
New Zealand.
New Zealand. So it's a tough task now for the Dutch. They play their second game of this World Cup, and we see Devon Conway getting ready to face the first ball. What fantastic form he's in. We look forward to bringing you all the runs, all the hits, the fours and the sixes. And while you watch this game, remember that you can catch up on everything on the ESPN Cricinfo app. It's got all the news, views and analysis. You can also have a rewatch of this show, and you can see what our experts have predicted as the score. Thanks for joining us here on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday. We'll be back with you at the innings break.
Stunning looks, then swift,